All right, good afternoon and welcome to our public hearing where we will discuss the Columbus Division of Police Camera System Update. I am Councilmember Emmanuel V, Chair of the Public Safety Committee. I want to remind everyone that this hearing is currently live on YouTube and Facebook and is also live and being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, Columbus's government television channel 3. The rebroadcast schedule is available at www.columbus.gov. I want to recognize and thank everyone for being here today. I also want to thank and welcome our presenters, Robert Clark, the Director of Department of Public Safety, George Speaks, the Deputy Director, Department of Public Safety, Thomas Quinlan, Deputy Chief, Columbus Division of Police, Sam Moore, Director, Department of Technology, Jeff Childs, the National Director of Axon, and my dear President of the NAACP, Nana Watson, who's on virtually. The purpose of this hearing is to learn more about the acquisition of the next iteration of body-worn cameras worn by police officers and other sworn police personnel, in-car cameras, and interview room camera systems for the Division of Police. Our presenters will provide an overview that will include the history of body-worn cameras in the City of Columbus, related legislation, the procurement process, the design and functionality of the cameras, the implementation process, and associated expenditures. Without further ado, I will turn the floor over to Director Robert Clark to begin the presentation. Director Clark, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, Councilmember Remy, and thank you very much. Thank you for having us, and thank you for this very important public hearing on our new body-worn camera system. Let me start by saying this. In today's technological age of law enforcement, body cameras are essential to an officer as their badge and gun. Yet many jurisdictions across the country have yet to implement this vital technology. The advances in video camera technology are remarkable, as we all know, compared to the cameras that were first deployed here in Columbus in 2016 and have been in use ever since. The arrival of this next generation technology in Columbus is a win for accountability and transparency. It's a win for building trust with our community, and it's a win for officer safety. All of this makes it a win for public safety and for public service. And as we begin this evening, I want to ensure that all of our residents who are listening, as well as presenting to City Council, that this has been a team effort, a collaborative team effort between public safety, the Division of Police, the Department of Technology, and our community partners, because we heard the call to improve our technology, improve our transparency, and improve our relationships with our community. And the way that we do that is through enhancing our technology so that we can more expeditiously provide that information, that transparency, and that communication to ensure that we are serving in an integral way. And as we begin this evening, I want to introduce Deputy Director George Speaks, who will certainly take you through the program, and I want to publicly applaud the work that he and his team have done in partnership, not just with our colleagues from Axon, but now our friends from Axon, who are also present here this evening to provide testimony to you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Clark. Chairman Remy, as the Director stated, the advances in this new generation of cameras is truly amazing. These advancements, such as better audio, video capabilities, automatic activation, transcription, redaction, coupled with technology systems integrations, such as with our computer-aided dispatching system, both the Franklin County and City Prosecutor's Office, their matrix systems, the integrations of these technologies will create greater efficiencies and effectiveness, not only for our Division of Police, but throughout our Franklin County criminal justice system. This technology will also help to lay the foundation for what we are ultimately working towards in the not-too-distant future, a real-time crime center. This presentation will provide you with the background of body-worn cameras in Columbus, our procurement process, and describe the very impressive features of our next-generation camera technology. Lastly, we'll outline project implementation milestones and budget. So let's begin back in 2015 when then City Council President Ginther called for the creation of a comprehensive body-worn camera program. As a result, we promulgated policies for deployment, public records, retention, and redaction. And quite frankly, this was accomplished by looking at virtually every single body-worn camera policy in the nation at that time. We purchased our first generation body-worn cameras from the vendor WatchGuard, which was then subsequently purchased by Motorola and now operates under that name. And since 2016, 3.5 million body camera videos have been taken with these cameras. Now, to give you an idea of the volume, in 2021, the division uploaded an astonishing amount of video data, 593 terabytes, which is comprised of over 1 million videos totaling over 19,000 hours. These videos are taken not only from our body-worn cameras, but also our in-car cameras and interview room cameras. Now, with respect to body-worn cameras, we record an astounding, at least, at a minimum, 20,000 hours a month. 20,000 hours of body cam videos a month now. Now, again in 2021, total storage was equivalent to approximately 593 terabytes. Now, you may ask, I'm a lawyer, not a techie. What is that? And the best graph that I could find that puts that in context is 593 terabytes, or 49 times the amounts on the graph shown on the right. So for example, those terabytes would be the equivalent of 4 million telephone books. That's just an astronomical number of the data that we are inputting. Now, these 3.5 million videos that we've taken since 2016, these are public records, thanks to our seminal work leading to the unanimous passage of Ohio House Bill 425, which declared police videos in the state of Ohio to be public records. This trailblazing legislation has been nationally applauded and is looked upon as a national best model, as it deftly balances the sometimes competing values of transparency for the public versus individual privacy. Now, we have been working for over a year to bring the next generation of body-worn Columbus in-car interview room technology to our city. And anticipation and preparation of this more advanced technology, we were able to secure significant changes in our Fraternal Order of Police, our FOP contract. These changes include automated activation. And what I mean by that is it allows cameras to be turned on without manually interaction by the officer. In other words, the officer doesn't have to push the button any longer in certain circumstances. Likewise, pre-event recording. This allows, the new technology allows for both audio and video look back up to 2 minutes prior to turning the camera on. If you recall, currently we only have 2 minutes of video, no audio. We will now have both. And video recall. This allows Director Clark to order the review of audio and video recordings up to 24 hours prior to a critical incident. Now, as you will see, the next generation of video technology advancements will incorporate, either in full or in part, these contractual advancements that I just cited. Again, these changes were developed to foster transparency and accountability. Now, to bring this technology to our city, we assembled a multidisciplinary team comprised of internal and external stakeholders with vast experience and expertise in different fields. We brought in folks who are experts in technology, finance, law enforcement, government procurement, and legal, to name a few areas of specialization. I especially want to give a great shout out to Nana Watson, the president of the Columbus chapter of the NAACP, who gave both invaluable community insight and she gave countless hours of work to this initiative. I also want to give a shout out to Robin Slaughter in our purchasing office. She was wonderful in coordinating a vast number of people in meetings throughout the many months that we've been working on this. So thank you, President Watson, and thank you, Robin Slaughter, and thank you, the entire selection camera committee. Now that started, the procurement process started with a very comprehensive solicitation that we published in early 2021. And we received 6 proposals from national vendors: Axon, Baycom, Bright, Coben, Motorola, and Utility. In addition to the committee I just mentioned, we also had expertise in various subcommittees: technology, finance, a 6 weeks officer field trial, and the end users. And by end users, I mean ultimately the evidence goes to the city prosecutor's office, the Franklin County prosecutor's office, or our own public records unit. So we received the assistance from these folks. We'd like to briefly touch upon each of these committees. The first committee, technology, was led by Director Sam Orth. Director.
Good evening. With respect to the Technology Committee, the city organized broad and deep experience in areas such as police technologies, mobile computing, server and storage infrastructure, evidence management, application development, cybersecurity, digital video cameras, and complex systems procurement. The subcommittee spent in excess of 750 hours assessing technical specifications and providing input into the selection committee. The tech subcommittee did extensive review of the specifications among and between all the offers. There was clearly 2 offers that stood above the rest. The tech subcommittee recommended to the procurement committee that Motorola and Axon be further considered.
So from there, we took the 2 finalists and we put them through a intensive 6-week field trial that was led by Deputy Chief Tom Quinlan. Tom.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Chair Remy. So we did a 6-week field trial throughout the city of Columbus to test the capabilities of the equipment across all geographic areas to see the reliability. And the important part was to take both camera systems and put them in the same car. So we were testing apples to apples and use the same officer. So one officer didn't really like theirs, and another officer, that way they tested both of them, got apples to apples evaluation. And based on that, we tested it throughout patrol, throughout SWAT, INTAC, motorcycles, bike officers. The test was occurring during all hours of the day and night and all days of the week, all shifts. So every part of Columbus was touched. You see on here, every zone had a precinct that's focused on, but in addition to that, Zone 2 had Midwatch, so it covered the entire southeast portion of the city, but SWAT, motorcycles, and freeway cars were throughout the entire city. So there was really no area that we didn't test the reliability of the equipment and get positive feedback on that we could make informed decisions with. The preparation for the 6-week trial, the 2 weeks were just getting the infrastructure in place for the network and relying heavily on DOT and others to make that happen. Installing the cruiser video equipment, the vendors came in and installed those and worked through any issues, which were very few. And so our platforms were pretty much ready to go, and the systems were ready to go. And we also provide the training. The remaining 4 weeks were used for equipment evaluations. Of all those who participated in it, we had a universal agreement that both platforms were a significant improvement over our current camera that was older technology. But at the end of the 6-week field trial, Axon won out as the vendor we are requesting tonight through the procurement process. Thank you.
So in addition to our 6-week officer field trial, we had our end users review the evidence management systems for the 2 finalists. And the end users, again, would be the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office, the City Prosecutor's Office, and our own public records unit. Taken into consideration were factors such as the ability to share video evidence, redaction, transcription, and interacting with the electronic management system called the Prosecutor's Matrix System. Now, these evidence management systems are essential because they sift through enormous amounts of video to collect, manage, and tag evidence. And in deciding between the 2 systems, the Franklin County prosecutors noted that, and I'll quote, "The Axon solution seemed more mature, capable of matrix and systems integrations now, and full-featured for the present and future of the Columbus Division of Police and prosecutor needs," end of quote. The prosecutor's office said that they, quote, preferred to very strongly prefer the Axon system over Motorola. Likewise, the city prosecutor's office noted that, and I quote, they prefer the Axon data management system because it allows us to have and maintain control of our own evidentiary database, without having to rely on the police agency for video recordings, end of quote. And lastly, our public records unit, quote, very strongly prefers Axon to Motorola, noting such factors as, and I quote, the ability to integrate with CAD and auto-populate the incident number into the field ID for easy searching, and the ability to upload their files to the cloud and then subsequently share. This will be most helpful when packaging information for the prosecutor's office since they request enormous amounts of video. Now, allow me to put those comments into context. Currently, the Division of Police expends significant time and effort to manually download videos onto storage devices, such as compact disc and thumb drives. These storage devices must then be manually transported to the county and or to the city's prosecutor's office, as well as manually given to folks who make public records requests. This next generation technology is iCloud-based, so that data can now be electronically shared. Likewise, the prosecutor's office can then share with defense counsel. So given the tremendous volume of video evidence and public records requests, this solution will generate efficiencies throughout our Franklin County criminal justice system.
So, Chair, one of the things that you're hearing a recurring theme of here tonight is integration. Previously, we had standalone systems of multiple platforms, and none of them talked or integrated with each other. The value in this Axon-specific system is the integration now with body-worn camera, in-car, interview rooms, and then, as I'm going to get to here in a minute, third-party video. So with that, the Columbus has an existing relationship with Axon, and I think that's also one of the things that was critically important in our due diligence is finding which company that we had a relationship with and was responsive. Because of that relationship with Taser and others through Axon, we had a good baseline to start with for this process. And also, Axon currently provides a significant number of camera systems to major entities, major cities, such as, in this case, in Ohio, State Highway Patrol, Cleveland, Cincinnati. But I think of the 70 major U.S. cities, I think it's something like 52 of those cities use this product. So I think it's been well vetted in that regard. And also our prosecutor's office, because of other suburban cities already use it in Franklin County, they're already using some of the free platforms that they can to acquire evidence through evidence.com, which is a subscription-based, cloud-based solution, which is a first for us in this regard. And I have to give specific credit to both Director Speaks and Axon for both of them coming to the table and having an appreciation for where we need to get to for responsiveness to the public and meet that demand. And Director was able to successfully, for the first U.S. jurisdiction, to obtain unlimited third-party video. So not just Axon videos, anything else is typically based on how much the storage is, a price per amount of storage. In this case, we're able to actually put in legacy data, put in third-party data. People send in videos from their cell phone. We can put all that in there, but that doesn't just help us, make us efficient and detectives, but it also makes one location for discovery issues for prosecutors and everything. They can find everything in one place and not miss something over here that could derail a case. I think those are really important aspects. So our future is obviously moving towards a real-time crime center. Our partnerships and our joint ventures, I think, that we have maybe on the horizon with CAD RMS, everything's about integration these days and cloud-based. I think with all the tagging and transcribing and other features that this is going to bring, we've spent countless hours of due diligence, and after that time, we, as a committee and all the subcommittees, recommend the Axon system. Thank you. So what are we obtaining through this procurement 2,105 body-worn cameras, but that also includes many spares at no cost, which again is a savings as well, but we'll be able to swap out if there's an incident with one until it gets sent back and repaired. We'll have an instant swap out and a 3-year refresh, which keeps the latest technology going. I think that's really important. 450 in-car cameras. Back up for a second on the body-worn cameras. Because every officer, 2,105, will account for every single sworn officer in the division, uniform or plainclothes. Many of those plainclothes officers work special duty, and we know we have a lot of incidents at special duty establishments, so they will be able to and be allowed to wear this at a special duty job, which currently we just don't have the resources to allow them to do. That answers that issue. The in-car systems, again, the entire fleet, special duty cars, relief cars, prisoner transport vehicles, everything will, every marked cruiser will have one in the vehicle, which will be integrated with body cameras. So again, we have that more of the synchronization opportunities. 16 interview room cameras. Again, we're using third-party platforms right now for our different interviews, for ID, for internal affairs, all those things. This is going to streamline everything into one. Also, teams like SWAT and task forces, sometimes they wear uniforms or tactical, gear if they're on a mission, or they may be wearing plain clothes. So this allows them to have, they'll actually have two. One, the normal body camera you see on the top right, and then the flex that you see down below. So when they're, it doesn't do any good if they're on a mission, they have a body camera on their chest and they're laying on the ground in an observatory position. Having one on their helmet looking forward facing as they're looking upward, that's what's required. So we have accounted for that. So the conversion of the WatchGuard legacy data, I think, is, again, something that is a first in the country opportunity for us to have that data, tag it. Even a 911 call, as simple as just a phone call, could actually be transcribed. And so there's a lot of features that will make things a lot easier for prosecutors, for defense attorneys to have a better, fuller picture of everything that is discoverable, and public records. So moving on to the technology. Again, before we were limited in technology to one microphone on a camera. We were limited to some of the mounts. We were limited to some of the pixels or video rates, how they captured motion and blur. And we were only limited to 60 seconds of video only look back. Through the collective bargaining agreement, we now have 2 minutes of audio and video look back. This system will reduce the motion and blur and low light. It gives a much better image of what an officer is actually seeing. 4 microphones are contained on this device versus 1, so there's a lot more synchronization, integration of the best quality sound, and you don't have as much chance of missing something. The integration with body camera and in-car allows for overlapping views due to synchronization. You could have 2 officers, each with a body camera, and 2 cruisers. They pull up at 2 diverse angles. They exit their vehicles, and then they take up other points. Now you almost have 2 cruisers capturing something here and 2 officers capturing something from this direction, and it will play on one screen in real time, side by side, perfectly synchronized. That gives at least the user a better understanding of what was occurring around a situation, not just a single one-dimensional viewpoint. Also, again, I mentioned about the pre-event buffer being video and audio, but it also has a 12-hour battery life. So as we've seen things over the past couple of years that we had technology that even when officers deployed it, it did not remain when they were deployed for a 12-hour shift. This will address that. It's a quicker recharge, 4-hour recharge. But there's also in-car charging capabilities. And in this particular one, you don't have to take the camera off and dock it, because then you may jump out of the car in a hurry on an urgency and forget it. Here, you can actually tether it to you when you jump out, it breaks away, and your camera's already activated and ready to go. Video recall up to 18 hours for the body camera in car. It has a little bigger storage device because it's hard fixed instead of a small camera. It can get up to 24 hours of pre-event recording, even though the camera wasn't activated. And then some of the features include a license plate reader, which improves situational awareness and increases safety. On-off procedures on this are specifically congruent with officers just, fiddling around with activation, less chance of operator error. To deactivate this camera, you have to push and hold for a solid 3 seconds to actually deactivate the camera. It is very unlikely that would occur by pure incidental contact or mistake. That's an intentional act. So again, we would know if an officer is intentionally deactivating the camera, and then the director still has the ability to order that pulled back up in a recall situation. So those are good features I think we or will benefit by as a city and the user. The big issue, I think, with this that I like better than probably any other features is the redundancy. Again, it allows for less operator error, which you'll see on the next slide. The automatic activations help, whether it be a speed trigger, a collision, exiting your vehicle, and pulling your shotgun or rifle out when you do. Any of those things will activate the camera, turn your lights and siren on. So first of all, the policy now reads that upon dispatch, you will activate your camera. So they automatically activate their camera, even if they'll turn their lights and siren off. They're just going on a normal run, but they're dispatch, they activate their camera. So if they speed or turn their lights and siren on, there's less chance of operator error that they deactivate their camera because it would have already been activated from that, because they don't hold it down for 30 seconds, or I'm sorry, for 3 seconds. So I think the redundancy is important. You activate one, you activate the other. I think it helps turn all cameras on around the situation. So again, it reduces that operator error and makes for better oversight and accountability. And with that,
And Tom, let me say, it's one thing to talk about these features. Let us actually show you. Grant Ames from our office will show you some of the advancements in this next generation technology.
So thank you, Deputy Chief Quinlan. I think that we've kind of gotten an overview of the items that these cameras include, but let's take a look at some of the visuals. So the first is a low light feature that allows the camera to mimic the human eye. Normally, cameras don't take in all of the light sources. These cameras have a special feature that allows them to take in low light and project an image. So let's take a look at this video and see if you can tell a difference. The left-hand side are the previous cameras, and then the right-hand side are the new version.
Well, you look at that, do you mind if I clarify one issue? The previous camera on the left is actually a previous version or generation of the Axon camera. The current camera we have does not capture to this level even, because it's a really older technology. So that would still, even the left would have been an improvement, but we're going all the way to the third level, which is important.
Thank you, Chief. And then the next version, the next slide we're going to look at is the clear frame playback. So as you can see, the left-hand side is without the clear frame playback, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the difference. It allows us to take in the information and get a clear image of the events. If there are specific details in the video that we're looking to see as part of when we're collecting the evidence, certainly important to make sure that we get all of that. So as you can see, the gentleman's face on the right-hand side is significantly better picture than on the left-hand side without that clear frame playback. Then I'll go to this third slide. It speaks to the synchronization. that Deputy Chief Quinlan was speaking about earlier. These 4 videos are of the same event. All 4 of them are from different devices. So as you'll see, 2 of these videos are from the body camera that an officer is wearing, and then 2 of these are from the in-car camera. So all 4 of them are from separate events. This will allow us to have a better understanding of the full situation and the full picture by having this synchronized video footage. In addition, the cruiser will have the ability to activate all of the cameras in the surrounding area, and I know Deputy Chief Quinlan will speak about that a little bit more on the next slide. But that's going to significantly enhance the amount of evidence that we're collecting and the amount of video that we'll be able to view.
Thank you, Grant. So I believe this was the previous slide, so we'll move on to I believe it'll be the next slide. There you go. I think the important part of the clarity, is when something is what the human eye captures and what a video that's maybe where an officer's running and there's motion on both sides of the camera from the person being chased, say, and a person running, is that, what is the officer seeing? The better the quality of the video that we can capture to tell a better picture of what the officer may be seeing, because in real life and, in live as versus, a flat computer screen reviewing something, we want the best quality video we can to have the best image to see what was likely being viewed by the officer, to confirm or refute anything that was viewed. So I think that's important. So in the end, the body cameras exist to collect evidence, and the evidence of an event that either fosters greater transparency, accountability, or can be used to either prosecute or exonerate someone for their actions. The Axon evidence system is significantly more advanced than our current system and will provide a strong foundation on which to build our future real-time crime center. Lastly, I would like to also note that the evidence system is very secure. The secure cloud-based system is consistent with the FBI CJIS standards security policy, meets all the requirements and expectations of accreditation on law enforcement, CALIA, and would say is beats or exceeds any industry expectations. It's a good system. And the easy access to video for prosecutors and for them then to also share it with defense is very valuable. But the other thing is, with the prosecution, whether county or city, we're using a system called Matrix, where all of our paper stuff that we've had has to be uploaded, and then the video had to be, as director said, taken in a CD or a thumb drive. It was too big to send in a file. Here, because we can send a link to it, it's cloud-based. And one of the things, and Axon can correct me if I'm misstating this, but as I understand it, our copy of the video will be singular or individual from one we transmit to the county. So if they change it, let's say just the number, we may want to search it by our case number that's unique to CPD, but they may want to track that by the criminal case number, the 2022 CRB number, say. They can change it. It won't change ours. They can basically have standalone options. I think those are valuable. The video tagging will help the computer-aided dispatch and record management system being able to find information desired that people are asking for. Reduction of manual redaction time. Think of, as the director said, terabytes and terabytes of information. One incident may draw 10, 12 cruisers there. So now you have 10, 12 cars, you have 10, 12, 14, 15 officers if they're 2 officer, and all that video to go through and redact out license plates or sensitive information that's permitted to be redacted by state law. That's a lot of manual time. This allows for a lot of that to be automated, which is very helpful and probably more accurate because there's less chance of missing something. And the transcription, I think, also helps. DV prosecutor can get a 911 call within hours or a day versus 6 weeks, which is helpful. And the other thing to keep in mind is there will be a secure audit trail. One, nobody can alter or change a recording. An officer can't go in there and try to manipulate their own recording or anyone else's. But there will be an audit trail exactly who is looking at that video, what they've done, if they've saved it or downloaded or forwarded it, anything else, a complete secure audit trail, which I think is an essential feature.
Chairman Remy, next slide, please, Grant.
Slide missing?
Yeah, go to the cost, yes. Chairman Remy, our total cost is approximately $19 million. The first year would be 7.4. That will pay for the acquisition of the hardware, the installation of the software, the various software integrations. After the first year, it's approximately $2.8 million in years 2 through 5. This cost was derived after lengthy contract negotiations, and I would note this represents a significant discount of approximately 23.37% of what Axon generally charges other police departments. Moreover, as we said before, we are the first jurisdiction in the nation to achieve unlimited third-party storage, which we think will result in significant long-term savings. So we are very proud of this contract in relation to other Axon contracts in Ohio and across the nation. Now, we certainly realize that the investment of $19 million is so significant. However, we have to underscore that the transparency, accountability, and efficiencies afforded by this next generation technology is simply invaluable. We thank you for your time in presenting this PowerPoint, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and we know that you have several other speakers in the batting lineup.
Sure. I think before we get into questions, I want to acknowledge Council President Hardin and thank him for being here, as well as Councilmember Nick Bankston, who's online via WebEx. Let's talk about this since the cost associated with it is up. What was the 2016 cost of the contract? Do you recall? Just previous, I mean, understanding that technology changes, and then, of course, the significant cost of hardware storage that the Director of Technology might be able to speak to a little bit better. But as far as, you know, we're in flux here. We're going to the 21st century, and we're having cloud-based storage solutions, which is great. But I kind of want to talk about how that change has occurred, and you know, it's a little bit of a shift for the city, I believe. Is that not right? I guess I'll start with Director Worth in a sense, and speak to that a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the storage goes, I'll leave the cameras to Director Speaks, but the storage, the city built in its first acquisition 2 storage arrays, 1 in each of our 2 data centers, and that investment was about, the initial investment and then later an expansion is about $2.5 million. It's important to note that this newer technology, more cameras, so we're going from 14 to 2,100 cameras. We're going with cameras in every cruiser, plus the evidence cameras, and we'll be recording in a higher resolution. So the city's going to need more storage. That unlimited agreement is a very, very important component of this partnership, as it mutes the need for the city to continue to expand its local storage investment. That doesn't mean we won't continue to use that technology. We'll find other uses for it in things like the neighborhood camera program, but nonetheless, $2.5 million is now maintained in this agreement over the period of the agreement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. I would just say that it's sort of apples and oranges comparing 2016 with 2022. The reason being, in addition to the body-worn cameras, which, again, we're going from approximately 13 to 2,100, we are also having 450 in-car cameras that come with license plate readers. We're also 16 interview room cameras in addition to the flex cameras. But what's really impressive is the back technology, the evidence management systems, and the advancement in the synchronization and the automatic means of starting the cameras, which Axon will be demonstrating for you in a moment. So again, if we look at current pricing in Ohio and throughout the nation, the city of Columbus, due to the volume that we're purchasing received a steep discount.
I mean, to be clear, this is about just a little bit over 1% of the budget for the police department on an annual basis. And so I'm just trying to gain perspective here and certainly, being supportive of technological advances. This is, exciting to have this type of resolution for everyone involved, for our officers, for the public, for us as leadership within the city. This type of advancement is important, so appreciate that. You mentioned some storage opportunities when it came to our neighborhood camera program or whatever, but I also want to tie back to the unlimited storage. Can those feeds go into this as well? Like our street-based cameras that in the police, I see the Axon people shaking heads. So I mean, obviously we're a little bit behind not having the real-time crime center in today as it sits, but this is leaps and bounds better than what the abilities to be able to collect this in a cloud-based solution is leaps and bounds better than where we are today. And I think that gives us, especially with the unlimited portion, I'm kind of testifying on behalf of that. So the battery life comparison, can you tell me a little bit about what the battery life today is? Because I know that's been an issue ongoing versus what this is going to provide.
Thank you, Chair. So currently the battery system, because the cameras are dated, it's kind of the end of their useful life. The batteries have been charged and depleted, charged, depleted. They're lasting 5-6 hours. And so it's hard to get through a shift with those. And the current battery system does not have a replaceable battery. So you'd have to send it back to the factory and have that replaced. So that would also limit the ability to upgrade just the battery alone. So I think that with this system, it's going to be, a fresh new technology, fresh battery, and be all encompassing as far as doing a sweeping change and not in the past we started out with 12 cameras and piecemealed it and grew it over time to 1,300 cameras. Here we're able to do everything synchronized, cameras in cars, cameras in interview rooms, body cameras, everything, everyone will be on the same platform and it will be integrated, and that's the important part.
And the current battery is approximately 12 hours. That's what the Axon literature states. However, when we tested during our field trial, actually the battery went longer than that. One additional advantage of this next generation is that you're able to recharge the camera while in the cruiser.
Right. Speak to the spares. I think this is an important upgrade as well, because on my understanding, sometimes we don't have the spares available. So this being part of the contract, the replacement of damaged or equipment that needs to be fixed. Could you talk a little bit about that? What we have currently versus what's going to be a part of this?
So right now we have absolutely zero spares. We don't have a spare to offer anyone. This will allow, again, to credit Director Speaks, not sure how he accomplished it, but the original intent was 3 spare cameras for every 100 we purchased. We were able to get 5 for every 100 cameras purchased. So I think the spares are ample and will serve our needs. So not only every single officer will have access to one, but we will have a spare to immediately give them. And it's as simple as check a QR code and immediately assigns it to that officer, package the other one up, send it back. They will replace it or fix it and send it back to us. Plus there's a 3-year refresh. So that'll all be refreshed at 3 years over this 5-year term.
Talked a little bit about the converting the footage from our legacy system. How long is that going to take, to upload that? Is it somewhat dependent on how fast we can plug everything into it, or what's that look like?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I have a specific time in mind, but it is a massive amount of video. And we have to remember, beyond the recording format of the original system, it's potentially a different format on the new system. And then they will have to be transferred locally from here in Central Ohio to the Axon cloud. So that is going to take some amount of time. weeks, potentially a couple months for that to occur. And of course, we're continuing to add to it while we're in the process of switching over. So we'll get that integration done and start to move those files over and eventually get them all up into the Axon Storage Cloud.
And again, Mr. Chairman, the entire implementation time period will begin in June, and we hope to be completed by the end of spring 2023. So this is a massive undertaking.
You mentioned a little bit about the LPR readers. I mean, tell us what we have today versus what we're going to have in the future, how those will be used. I mean, obviously, a significant amount of complaints from our constituents about stolen vehicles. It seems to be kind of an extreme situation, especially with Kias and Hyundais. And so want to understand like how these LPRs will be utilized and again, what we have today and what this means in the future.
So currently, Chairman, we have approximately 25 mobile LPRs on cars, and we have 2 fixed, one on Sullivan and one on Cleveland Avenue. And that's all we have in the city. This will provide 450. But just those 2 fixed cameras as an example, so for 2 fixed cameras, they are collecting every 7 days, they are collecting over 100,000 plate reads in those 2 locations alone. And we have 9,241 stolen cars right now in our system. We have probably close to 300 felony warrants on people that are in Columbus, that are filed by Columbus right now, and those will all be things that can be caught on using cameras, LPR cameras. And the other thing with this is we've already, just on the fixed cameras, we've already been seeing where cars that are stolen have been caught several times on camera. So we know kind of where they're congregating or hanging out, and sending cruisers that area and say, look for this car over here because we've picked up 30 times on a camera. And they found and recovered cars. In fact, one real quick example was a plumber who had a commercial vehicle that was stolen and had $20,000 worth of personally owned equipment in there as tools. And 2 years later, using this system, we were able to say, check this apartment complex. I think it's frequents this area. They went over, they found the vehicle, called the owner to the scene, and 2 years later, all the equipment was still in there, and he recovered his vehicle. So it was a very happy resident.
And Mr. Chairman, in addition to assisting with stolen vehicles, missing children or adults, it will provide instantaneous, better situational awareness for our officers as to whom they may be pulling over. So it increases officer safety by having the license plate readers.
There are now, going to be some actions which automatically turn on the cameras, and so, but it won't do it under all circumstances. So I'm kind of curious, like, what type of additional training you'll utilize with the officers to make sure that they're following compliance of any type of, standard what their standard protocol is.
Yeah, excellent question. So every officer that receives this new equipment, which will be everybody, will attend an in-person training class when they receive the equipment, and they'll also have periodic online training with any updates, any reminders or briefings or anything we see glitches. We can immediately put those out, and those are all tracked, and they have to sign for those so we can hold them accountable for having that. So that piece is important, but I think the fact that again, the officers have the equipment, the policy is that they activate it upon dispatch. In the old days, I'll say, just previously, the policy was that if you were engaged with someone in an enforcement capacity, activate your camera. However, now we've just said, you get dispatched to a call for service or you self-initiate something, activate your camera. The preference is activate it when you're dispatched, because let's say you have a 3-minute drive to get somewhere. The camera's rolling, you don't have to think about it if you get there and a bunch of chaos is occurring. But if you show up and everything's going on, you jump out of your car, you may not even think about activating the camera. and you may not have your lights and siren on because it may be a burglary in progress or a robbery in progress. You may go with lights out and try to get in without alerting the suspect that you're there. So I think this will allow for better options to activate the camera and capture what we need. But again, this also allows for a safeguard that we've never had before, and that's the ability for the director to say, you know what, we missed this. Let's go back and look at it because we need this video. And at his order, he can actually go back and pull something if it does, for whatever reason, not get recorded.
And Mr. Chairman, training will also have to be undertaken by the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office, the City Prosecutor's Office, and our own Public Records Unit, as well as some other folks such as the new Inspector General, as to how to utilize the videos, bring them up, any redaction that may need to be done, how to forward on the videos. So all of that is inclusive of this charge. These third parties, such as the other two offices, will not be charged additional monies. That is included within this cost. So again, greater efficiencies throughout our Franklin County justice system.
Council President Harden.
Thank you, Chair, for hosting the hearing. To directors, to the administration, Director Orth, Director Clark, to Chief Quinlan, and to Mr. Childs and the Axon folks, thank you for this conversation. And I apologize if I asked a redundant question. I was late getting here. Again, my apologies. In terms of just the lifespan of this technology, I also got to shout out our former council member, former chair, Councilmember Mitch Brown, who for many years as chair of safety advocated for an advanced, he advocated it was time for us to get an advanced camera system. How long do we expect these cameras to last and to work, understanding that technology is changing more rapidly than we can necessarily keep up?
So we have a 5-year contract that we negotiated. However, in year 3, we negotiated a complete refresh of the cameras. Therefore, we will get the latest and greatest iterations as technology is changing and advancing so quickly. So 3 years, brand new cameras, and then we're able to have those cameras for an additional 2 after that.
Thank you. And again, this might be a redundant question. We know a couple years ago we had an issue with a human error where we deleted some videos. Can we talk about the redundancies built into this Axon model that would protect us from that type of accident, a human error?
Yeah, I would defer to Director Orth on the technology question.
Please.
President Harden, the Axon commercial cloud system will record all the videos simultaneously to 2 data centers across the United States. So at any one time, whether it's body-worn camera, in-car, interview room, or other third-party video that we put in their cloud, we'll always have 2 copies of it. Chief Quinlan mentioned earlier that officers can't redact or otherwise change the source video. So we will always have 2 copies of the video at 2 different data centers at any moment in time. And if there's an unfortunate error or a system failure and one of the sites, the primary site, were destroyed for some unfortunate reason, we'd always have the backup.
Thank you, Director. This is a protocol question. As we know that our officers engage in other interagency actions, can someone talk about the protocol with the cameras pertaining to interagency engagement? Say like with the federal task force or
Sure. So President Harden, as you know, our federal partners have been, quite frankly, behind the curve in implementing body cameras. But in June of last year, the Department of Justice put out a memo recognizing the importance of body cameras, and they've been implementing. They are also now allowing us, in terms of entering into a memorandum of understanding with those partners, to be able to utilize the body-worn cameras in many situations, but not all. There are certainly more restrictive. So for a good example is if there's a confidential informant, one of our officers working on a task force would not be allowed to utilize that body-worn camera. So I would say it's greatly improved since the change in Department of Justice policy, and that we have now entered into many memorandums with our federal partners.
And just lastly, Deputy Director speaks, I can kind of consider you like our philosopher king as it pertains to safety. And I know you do a lot of reading, and I know there's a lot of research out there pertaining to safety cameras. Is there anything new, anything that you have read? I know there's new data, new studies out there, when, how safety cameras are used at big cities, small cities, departments.
So if you look back historically, I promise not to bore you, if you look back historically, body cameras actually originated in Europe, not in the US. And so there was 2006. 2006 was the first study I know of out of England, and it basically held that incidents of force were decreased. The first study in the United States was out of Rialto, California. And there's been subsequent studies. But if you look at all of these studies, and I'll generalize, they will tell you that, and I think it's somewhat commonsensical, people act better. And by people, I mean both officers and the public. You act better when you know you're being recorded. So if there's one thing you could extrapolate from all the studies, folks acting better because folks will be reviewing their actions and what they say subsequently.
Thank you, Council President. I know, just in speaking with the FOP, they've learned to be appreciative of, this too, because in most cases, it just provides clarity of what happened during the scenario.
Mr. Chair, we had, to be quite frank, some great difficulty in December of 2016 when we first implemented with getting some officers on board with this technology. I can tell you that now, officers will be so pleased that every single officer will have a camera. They want the cameras now. They have shown their effectiveness in multiple areas. And what I like, once again, is the transparency and the accountability that they provide, and the safety, increasing the safety of both the public and our officers.
So before I turn it over to the Axon team, I want to turn the floor over to my NAACP president and all of ours in the city of Columbus, Miss Nana Watson, to provide testimony. I also want to thank her for her commitment to serve on this committee, along with my aide, in particular, Jeff Carter, and then the many others that made up the committee to help select Axon to begin with. But I do want to turn the floor over to her for her testimony. Miss Nana, I am ready for you.
Good evening. I thought it was afternoon. Good evening, and I bring you greetings from the oldest and the boldest civil rights organization in America, and Councilperson Remy. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and of course to you, Council President Shannon Hardin. I want to say that the NAACP has been in lockstep from the very beginning, and we'd like to thank our council and administration for the opportunity to participate in this important process. We have seen the loss of life as a result of actions taken by law enforcement across America and here in our community. The NAACP and others across the country have demanded reform and bold action to rethinking policing. The NAACP believes video technology in the form of body cameras and in-car cameras is a fundamental part of broader police reform, as well as a critical tool to hold law enforcement more accountable and to ensure more transparency. We believe the greater the transparency, the greater the public trust, which improves safety for both the public and the police. The NAACP had the opportunity, as you said, Councilman Remy, to serve on the next generation body camera. I tell you, we had reams of paper. I mean, we looked at so many videos and how all of this was going to come together. And I want to tell you that we are happy to say that we succeeded. And let me say again, the greater the transparency, the greater the public trust, which improves safety for both the public and the police. We look forward to seeing the benefits of these new cameras for our entire community. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nana. Did you have anything? Okay. We appreciate, again, your commitment to serve and all that you do for our community. I'm going to now turn the floor over to kind of the fun part of the presentation to see what these things actually do. I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Jeff Childs and the Axon team to demonstrate a little bit of the capabilities and ask any questions we might have.
Perfect. Well, good evening, President and Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with Council today. So my name is Jeff Childs. I'm the National Director with Axon. I'll start with, we're extremely excited to partner with the City of Columbus and Columbus Police Department on this project. The collaborative process with the committee has been one of the most, I would say, thorough processes that we've gone through as a vendor, and that's a credit really to the team behind me. So with me today is our Vice President of Domestic Sales, Tiffany Vandenberg, our lead sales engineer, Matt Karsten, and our PR Director, Corinne Clark. So as George and the team outlined, our goal as an organization is really to provide better and more modern technologies to law enforcement in the communities they serve. And that really starts at the frontline officers when they're capturing evidentiary data, and then ultimately when it gets to the courtroom and it has to go through the adjudication process. Today we've brought a number of the cameras as well as the signal technology that will demonstrate, and President, there's actually a couple mounts up next to you. As George and the team went through the PowerPoint presentation, it was very thorough. There's a couple points I just wanted to kind of put a fine point on, but are there any specific questions for the Axon team before we start?
You threw me off there. I wasn't expecting the question part. I know, just to address, as any associated costs, I think it was pretty clear during the presentation, but just to be clearer, are there any associated costs for software updates or hardware replacements? We know about the hardware replacements of the software updates. And talk a little bit about, can these cameras capture more than what the human eye can capture, for instance? So
I'll start with the latter. So the cameras are designed to mimic the human eye. So we want to make sure that the camera is picking up exactly what the officer sees, no more, no less in that situation. And that actually is at the forefront of our design and build process. So the cameras are not going to show more than what the officer is seeing in that situation. As far as cost, all of the cost that was negotiated by George and the team is included. So software updates that we push out, we're at about a 45-day cadence when we're pushing out different firmware. Very similar to your cell phone. If it's an Android or iOS device, we automatically push those out. We also push out update notes, so the team is fully updated on what those updates look like. Anything that's, I would say, material change, it's automatically disabled, so we allow the agency to determine if it's something that you want to enable or disable or leave disabled. One of those features is actually that video recall. So we pushed that out about 12 months ago, and we pushed that out across the entire portfolio of customer base, and we allowed the agency to determine if that's something that they actually wanted to move forward with. As far as the upgrades, as George mentioned, there is a hardware upgrade at year 3. The idea there is to allow the agency to continue to stay on the latest technology, very similar to a cell phone. Every 2 to 3 years, there's an iPhone 35X. We want to make sure that Columbus has the latest and greatest technology. The shift from Body 2 to Body 3, as the team highlighted, there's clear audio, clear video. There's more capabilities in that device than the Axon Body 2. Any other questions?
Just the point you mentioned about the upgrades every 45 days or so, does that require the department to do anything as far as, or the officers
Great
themselves?
question. So because it's a SaaS-based application, we can actually push that out automatically. It doesn't require Director Orth or any of the team from a hardware perspective to have to update anything.
That's excellent, great. And then just in the course of your conversation, it'd be nice to know some of the other cities. I mean, I do see it on, when they're playing their little Axon moniker, but just to talk about
absolutely. So I'm based in Annapolis, Maryland. I cover a lot of our major accounts, pretty much out to Minneapolis, up to Maine, and down to Virginia. So I would say, key partners within Ohio, obviously I work with Ohio Highway Patrol. We navigated that contract about 6-7 months ago. Cincinnati and Cleveland have been 2 of our, I would say, longest partnerships. We partner with Philadelphia, Boston, NYPD, DC Metro, Louisville Metro. So those are, I would say, some of the ones within my territory. And then across the country, we partner with LAPD, Chicago, Miami, a lot of the other larger agencies. Yep. Okay. All right. The only other item I wanted to point out before we actually activate the cameras and show you what that signal technology, Third-party data. So this is something that, to George's credit, really hammered home. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that area. Columbus is the first agency that was able to negotiate that. This has actually been a very hot-button topic for a lot of agencies, and I think the premise behind that not only is CCTV or neighborhood cameras, but cell phones. Cell phone extractions, especially with the size of the memory on cell phones, is something that a lot of agencies are struggling with right now. From Columbus's perspective, that will be a non-issue moving forward. So from a legacy perspective, all of the legacy data we can upload, and we'll work closely with Director Orth on that. But moving forward, cell phone data, cell phone extractions, crime scene photos, anything related to third-party content, Columbus essentially has carte blanche access to put anything in one system. So we're moving or removing some of those disparate systems and silos. So that was one thing I did want to call out. We already mentioned the TAP refresh. Again, the goal there is to make sure that the law enforcement officers have the latest technology on their person. And then the other key item, and then we'll actually demonstrate it right next to the president. The cameras are facing this way, so don't worry, you're not going to be recorded. Is the automatic activation. The goal there is obviously risk mitigation. So signal activation will automatically activate the cameras to ensure from an administrative perspective, if there's an incident that has the firearm or the vehicle involved, there's going to be video associated with it. And then from the officer perspective, and Chief Quinlan kind of hit on this, they need to focus on the task at hand. So if we can remove that overt action for them to activate the camera, and we can make sure that they're focusing on what's in front of them, it's going to provide obviously safety for the officer, and then ultimately the citizen at the other end of that conversation. Okay, and we actually just activated those. So that is an example of the signal technology. So the way that would work in the vehicle, if they were to use the light bar, door jamb, anything that essentially can produce that output, the cameras would automatically activate. All of those cameras do synchronize. So when you go into the system, not only would it show Officer Child's body camera, but it would show all the other officers within that scene, which is very important when you get to the adjudication process because it makes sure that all of the videos are there and they're provided on time to the prosecutors. So again, all of the cameras are going to collate. Go ahead, sir.
On that point,
Yep.
is it assimilated all, versus with your technology, or is it like somebody like a tech, like pulling it from camera A to camera B, camera C? Does your technology bring it all at once?
It does it automatically. So within the cameras, there's a low-energy Bluetooth beacon that's constantly pushing out, and it's communicating with one another. And my sales engineer is probably going to laugh at the way I explain it, but they're essentially they're saying, hey, I appear to be at the same event that you're at. So when I go into the system, it's automatically happening. So it removes that manual interaction with the videos when you're collating them and you're actually creating the case file. Good. Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, we appreciate the discussion, and certainly excited to see this technology. I know that I've had an interest in Project Greenlight out of Detroit that was was started in 2016, neighborhood cameras, and so thinking about the unlimited storage and the capabilities that brings to us that we don't currently have. I think that there's some real opportunity here as we move towards a real-time crime center, but to have that capability today really helps us with a Band-Aid, I would say, or maybe much greater than a Band-Aid compared to what we had right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that has come out of the process is just removing information and data being all over the place and centralizing that. So when you do go to the real-time crime center, at least you're looking at a single point of truth as opposed to having to try to integrate multiple systems.
Makes real sense. Well, we appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah.
Did any of the presenters have any questions for Axon before we move on? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Appreciate it. So before we close out, I want to thank you for your thorough presentations. It's been enlightening, and certainly thank my colleagues for joining online and in person. We don't have any speakers this evening. Of course, we are going to take this legislation up at our next meeting next Monday. I gotta look at what the date is, the 28th. And so this legislation will be on as emergency. So want to make sure that people are aware of that, and they can certainly come down and provide testimony if they'd like. I would like to offer the floor over to the chair, or I'm sorry, the director, if you have anything further to say, or any of the presenters.
What I would like to share with you, Mr. Chairman, is first, thank you for the opportunity to do this. As I've said to you many times here in council, our women and men of the Division of Police deserve the very best that we can give them. Our residents of Columbus deserve the very best that we can provide to them. And we believe that this partnership with Axon is exactly the answer to that call, to give them the very best that they deserve. We recognize that we're in challenging times, both as residents and officers of the Division of Police. We have taken it very seriously to undertake policing reform and to rebuild and build back better a relationship with our residents, as well as for our officers' safety, to ensure that those two things are paramount in every single thing we do. I'm very thankful for the leadership of Chief Bryant, Assistant Chief Potts, our new assistant chiefs, our new deputy chiefs, and certainly our whole entire executive staff who have taken all of this very seriously. I want to publicly applaud Deputy Director Speaks on his work on this over the last several years, as you know. And it was a major undertaking, as I've also shared with you, that technology is not cheap, and we take this investment very seriously. The partnership and friendship that we have with Axon, they understand that our answer to this call to make sure that we have the very best for our residents and for our Division of Police is something we take very seriously. And while this is a significant investment, this is also a significant opportunity for us to be able to build that trust and transparency that President Watson talked about, that with transparency comes trust. We recognize that. We are in the process of answering that call and look forward to the great things that are ahead for us and for us all with this partnership with Axon and this new technology that we will deliver to the Division of Police and for the benefit of our residents as well. So thank you for this opportunity this evening.
Thank you, Director. And thank you, Deputy Director Speaks. We certainly do appreciate your service in putting together this RFP and running the process, managing it, and really vetting some great technologies that are out there, but obviously this one rose to the best of the rest. So excited to see implementation occur upon passage and certainly execute this contract. So I will thank the Department of Public Safety overall and Director Clark, Deputy Director Speaks, Deputy Chief Tom Quinlan, Director Orth, Jeff Childs from Axon, Grant Ames, thank you as well, and certainly everybody, Mark Carter, Lucy Frank, and Jeff Carter in the back. We want to thank you for your work in preparing for this hearing and for the contributions in ensuring this acquisition is successful. I'd also like to thank my legislative research team, John Oswald and Matt Erickson and James Lewis, for their assistance in making sure that this was a successful hearing today. I want to thank the public for tuning in, and certainly feel free to reach out to my office if there are any questions, concerns, or if you'd like to talk in the positive against this or for this contract. So I want to wish everybody a great evening and stay safe. Thank you.